All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the worst podcast in Knoxville. We haven't given up yet. We went through some shit.
Now we're the most persistent podcast.
We're still
in Knoxville.
homosexuals, and we are back on the grind for the new year of 2025.
This is very true. Also, are we sure that the lights are not in the field of view for the camera?
Let me check.
Because I honestly didn't check. I know we usually do that. It's been a minute. Just for clarification,
You can see it on the TV, but
it's fine. Just for clarification, it has been a fucking while since we started filming. So we're back at it though, and
absolutely, it's been about 5-ish months.
I think it's been about 4 or 5 months. Yeah. So our girlfriends won't have to disown us now that we're back.
Absolutely,
on this,
absolutely. Because at the end of the day, if your man doesn't have ambition and drive, throw him in a crock pot. Cook them up,
kill them,
as they say.
Yeah, kill them, murder them. But no, we are actually back on this, and it's exciting stuff. We started very briefly the trend of doing Reddit stories, and we're going to continue with that. So hopefully that's something that you guys want to see.
Yeah,
and
from our 4 fans that we did have, it was good feedback.
Yeah.
So obviously, we need to get this out of the way at the beginning. You know, obviously, comment, like, subscribe, give us your opinions, email us. I'm making a new business email, but we'll be making a politely outrageous email here soon.
Exactly. I'm working on the TikTok, so
awesome.
We'll be able to check those out here soon. You know, I mean, obviously, you guys, if you're watching this, you won't really need to, but you could at least spread them around if nothing else. So,
because the thing is, you have something as highly contagious as like crabs or herpes. That spreads.
Exactly.
So why can't our content spread?
Exactly. We're just as annoying as infectious as that.
Infectiously annoying.
Exactly.
Hashtag stay away from the infectors.
Could you imagine?
As Robert Greene says.
It's ridiculous. He says a lot of things.
He does.
A lot of insane things.
He's great.
He's funny though. It's 48 Laws of Power for anybody who doesn't know who he is. He wrote that book. And many others, of course. Yeah, but that's his most popular work.
It is. He wrote 48 Laws of Power, Art of Seduction.
Art of Seduction, yeah. Man's a legend.
33 Strategies to War.
Yep.
So it's hilarious.
He kind of looks sick most of the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. He's older and he had a stroke.
He's a little bit older. He's had a stroke.
Yeah.
But if you see him and he looks like he's about to die, don't worry. That's just his normal face.
He's got a ton of wisdom.
He does. Good guy.
Good guy, handsome.
Stoic.
Yeah. He is.
Yeah. That's always
big fan of Machiavelli.
Yeah.
Just like us.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Most people probably don't know who that is either,
they don't.
Honestly.
No.
So, we were probably just throwing names out that people are like, what the fuck is
They
this
either
guy
don't know who
talking
he
about?
is or they think he's the worst person to ever live.
Yeah, it's rather interesting because most of his works were not really necessarily advocating for like just abuse of power. It was just sort of like, hey, if you're gonna do the power game, do it right.
He explained the political situation of Italy at the time.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that he was also like a poet.
Yeah.
He's fucking a lot of
women. He was
women.
doing a lot of stuff. Yeah. I mean,
and he wasn't the Duke of Italy.
No.
He was just explaining.
He was just like a very, influential guy.
When he wrote The Prince, he wrote it in a Medici prison, and I'm pretty sure he was writing it to a Medici.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was making the policies and the moves. He was just writing. It'd be like me writing the policies of like Congress and how they move and how they act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It reflected his time period.
Yeah. No, it's like a lot of people think Robert Greene is like a terrible person because of the 48 Laws of Power. He's like they think that he's literally saying go out and do this stuff, which would be hilarious. But he's definitely not. He's just saying like, hey, if you find yourself in these situations, you could go about it this way.
Well, it's like us when we work at Pilot. We're gonna rise to the top.
Well, that's if everything fails.
We're gonna overthrow all the managers.
Stop.
We're gonna use our friends and.
It'd be amazing if we could just like overthrow people nowadays.
Oh, absolutely.
Like just overthrow like just some random businessman.
Form a faction.
Could you imagine?
It's hilarious. That's what they do when they vote him out.
So it is basically just a faction. You're right, which is insane. But no, it's we're unfortunately past the times when you could just overthrow somebody.
Well, literally, 200 years ago, you could just kill somebody.
You could just kill somebody, take their place.
And if you got found out, like say you were a mass murderer, you got found out, you're just an idiot.
Yeah, no, it's like you either were doing like some absolutely nut shit like H.H. Holmes where you killed like 300 people, like you literally made a hotel just to murder people, or you're just somehow the worst criminal to ever exist on the planet.
Especially, like, say you're out in the Wild West and you kill someone in the wilderness, there's no way they could trace it back to you.
Yeah.
There's no, like, DNA recognition or anything like that.
There's actually nothing. Like, what are they going to do? Like, be like, a pile of blood.
Honestly, a lot of
Clean
people,
it up.
a lot of people probably got falsely accused.
Oh, 100%.
Just because they had to just kind of guess at who it was.
Wild? There's still people that are falsely accused.
All the time.
Even with all the fucking forensic evidence that we have nowadays, it's
sometimes
still,
that makes it worse.
Sometimes, yeah, unfortunately, the justice system, we've said this before, is pretty awful, but sometimes it's really bad. Like, you'll end up in a really, really messed up situation, and you've done nothing wrong.
Well, sometimes your DNA will be a match for, like, a rape or something, and you didn't actually commit it.
Yeah.
It's a mistake.
Well, it'll be like you had sex with the girl the day before, and then some other dude killed her, but, like, there's still, like,
rape,
some fucking, some DNA evidence
and they pin it on you.
And they pin it on
you. It happens a lot. It actually happens a lot in America.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know. It's really quite unfortunate. Also, part of the problem is that with a lot of crimes, when it comes to, like, the jury, it's really just, it's not even about whether you committed the crime. It's just about if you can convince the jury that you're innocent.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of stuff that people don't really think
Well, then a
about.
lot of people that do, terrible stuff, they don't get punished, or they don't get punished enough.
Oh, yeah. Well, most of the time you get a lot of people to do some really messed up stuff, and they'll get, like, a day in prison.
Yep.
Or, like, 2 days in prison.
I was actually
Here's the thing, right? I know that this is a very unpopular opinion, but I do think there are certain crimes that there should not be any chance of forgiveness for, right? Like, if you are a rapist,
child
molester, or a murderer.
Yep.
And not like an accidental, like manslaughter. I mean, like, an actual murderer. There really shouldn't be any way to get out of those things at all. Now, obviously, I do understand that, there's, we've talked about it before. There's a lot of guys who are falsely accused of rape. So, I mean, I get that there are more things that go into it than just, like, hey, like, this person did a bad thing. Maybe that person's innocent. But if there's 100% proof, like, if like you have a video of a guy, like, murdering a child or some shit, there should not be any possibility of him getting out of that. He should be in prison forever and ever and ever.
They should absolutely be tortured and executed or be put in prison forever, because the thing is there's some crimes that are just unforgivable, right? It's not like you steal a fucking piece of chocolate from a store.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's some things that are just universally hated.
Yeah.
Child molestation is usually universally hated. You're not supposed to rape. You're not supposed to murder. It's in every fucking religious text. And at the end of the day, if you commit these fucking things, if you commit these crimes, you shouldn't just be let out after 10 years.
Yeah. No. It's insane. Also, unfortunately, for a lot of these people, like the actual psychopaths, what happens is they'll just do the same thing they were doing when they get out. Once they're out, they'll just pick back up where they left off.
I was having a conversation with my friend the other night, and we were talking about this, and at the end of the day, child molesters, people like that, people who hurt children, obviously, I do not believe that the vast majority of them can be rehabilitated and changed.
Absolutely not.
So the problem is if they only go to jail for 20 years, they're going to get out, and I'm pretty sure their reoffense rate is like 50%.
Yeah.
They're too dangerous to be let out.
Well, that's just the ones that are caught.
Exactly.
With the reoffense rate. Sometimes, obviously, after they've been caught, they get a little smarter and they hide it better.
There's some people who just cannot be let out because they're too dangerous. The judges talk about flight risks. We can't let them out on bail, but at the end of the day, some people are too dangerous to be in society. Yeah. And then when you let these people back out and they end up killing 5 more people, it's a failure of the justice system.
Exactly. It is. It's terrible. And you see it a decent amount, unfortunately. It's really not something that should be allowed, and it's really something that nobody talks about, right? And it's I get that there's a lot of people out there that are very much the empathetic, the bleeding heart, like, everybody deserves a second chance. And it's like, okay, but here's the thing. That's not true. There are some people that genuinely just don't deserve a second chance. Also, most of these people, it's not like they did these things on accident. It's not like you're a 20-year-old guy at a party and there's a 14-year-old girl who lies and tells you she's 18 and you have sex with her and then you find out later like, oh fuck, she's younger than I thought. Most of these people that are actual like predators and murderers,
They knowingly
do this stuff. Like you don't accidentally have sex with an 8-year-old girl as a 45-year-old man. That's not possible. You know, there's certain things that absolutely should not be forgiven. I genuinely don't care what
There
anyone
was a
says
case
on that.
like 10 years ago where this guy, he's a killer, and he murdered this girl's daughter.
Sure.
And obviously this woman, this idiot, this fool, unfortunately, is what she is.
Yeah.
She was like,
Happens.
oh, I want to forgive this man. I want to do this and that. You know, when he gets out, I'm going to give him a job. So she gives him a job.
Imagine.
And he kills her.
Could you imagine?
He kills her, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't change human nature. You've heard of, I don't know if you've heard of like the fable where it's like there's like a toad or a frog.
Of course.
And then there's a scorpion that comes along and he's like, carry me across the river. And the toad's like, I'm not going to carry you across the river. You're going to sting me. And the scorpion's like, I can't sting you. We'll both die. And then obviously they're halfway through the river and the scorpion stings him. And the toad's like, why? And the scorpion's like, it's my nature. Yeah. You cannot change people's nature.
This is true.
And you should never try. It's why you can't date sluts.
Exactly. Well, and this is, you know, and we're gonna finish up the intro here in a couple minutes, but just briefly we'll touch on this because it is an interesting topic. You cannot
keep going. I'm gonna check.
No, yeah, you're good. You absolutely cannot do some of these things and with certain people. Like you can't trust certain people with certain things, right? And really, when it comes to trusting people, I know that most people don't agree with this mindset, but if you go through life trying to trust everybody, you chances are will get taken advantage of, you will get hurt, you will get stolen from, you might even die. I mean, you could have so many bad things happen to you. Unfortunately, like the really trusting people, they usually get absolutely screwed in life.
Well, it's like, you ever heard the saying, if you're a friend to everyone, you're a friend to none.
No one. Yeah.
I am only friends with a very select few people.
Exactly.
I'm not friends with everybody because you can't.
You can't be. It's honestly, it's dangerous.
It's dangerous. Yeah.
It's very dangerous, and you know, just trusting anybody and everybody. Like, you know, you'll always hear people be like, you know, you shouldn't always try to see the worst in people. I disagree.
Yeah.
You should always try to see the worst in people, and then if they prove you wrong, you're pleasantly surprised.
Well, it's like if you had an arch enemy, right? You know, me and you are really good friends. If you had an arch enemy, say it's the arch trader or something, right? Someone that you just, you know, you guys have tried to kill each other.
Yeah.
I can't be friends with them.
No, you can't be friends
because it would be betraying you.
Exactly.
Like, I just cannot do it.
Exactly. It's nuts. Well, it's like, it'd be like, you know, going in and, you know, having sex with, you know, one of my exes or something. It's like, there's just certain things, like, especially like the crazy one, you know what I'm talking about. It'd be like, it's just insane.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be.
Well, that'd be actually.
There's a lot of levels
many
of why that would be bad.
Yeah, but like, it's just nuts.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's certain things that you just can't do, and you generally, if you go through life, you know, expecting the worst from people, but then still, now you shouldn't close yourself off completely. Like, you shouldn't be like thinking that everybody's a horrible person and there's nobody good in the world. But you should always assume that this person has some other intent, and then once you get to know them, if they turn out to be like, you know, a pretty cool person, you like them, good.
Yeah, I'm always somewhat cynical.
Exactly.
Of everyone,
because that's just the better way to go. It's the smarter way to go through life. You will run into so many less problems and be surprised much less often if you go through life with a more cynical outlook on the world.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
You know, a lot of people think that like being cynical means that you're just. I think a lot of people confuse it with nihilism. Like, they just think that it's like you just think that no one's good and there's nothing good and nothing matters and stuff. And I'm like,
the
no.
extreme nihilism.
It's like, yeah, it's like the extreme shit. And I'm just like, no, you can be cynical and still be a very positive person. You know, you just don't always try to see the good in people.
See it a lot in workplaces, right?
Yeah.
People think that their coworkers are their friends and that they're all buddy, and they start venting to their coworkers, and maybe you say something to your coworker about your boss, like, oh, she's being a bitch today, and that coworker uses it to get you fired.
Yeah.
Not everyone's your friend. Not everyone's a love bug. Not everyone's hitting it from the back on you. Like, you have to be careful with everyone.
It's true. It's true. And, with that, we'll wrap that up.
So with that, that's the end of the podcast.
We're going to go
10 minutes.
It's pretty much...
fucking our retention rate's probably gone by now. Everyone's probably clicked off.
They've definitely clicked off. But we'll figure it out somehow. But we're going to go ahead and get into some Reddit stories.
Absolutely.
We've got a few ready to go. And, hopefully these are interesting to people.
Well, I'm sure they will be.
Because that's what we're doing, and that's what we've been doing for a minute now. All right. Let's see here.
Yeah, start it off.
So, we're going to start off with this one. This is from the Unpopular Opinion subreddit, and its title, Growing as a Person is Done in Relationships, Not Alone. So we'll get into it and then we'll comment. So, the opinion everyone seems to have is that no one changes for a significant other, and that you can only change yourself as a person when you are alone and independent. However, I have found that to be a half-truth at best in real life. People change when spurred to. They grow when they feel safe enough and confident enough. Love provides a safe cover under which to find and fix emotional pain in the way of your happiness. We are built to help others grow. We aren't simply meant to pay a therapist as our only means of help. In my life, I have completely done away with emotional and physical pain due to childhood trauma, and it was mainly with my now husband of 20 years, and I wouldn't have gone through that metamorphosis if I didn't want to be the best person I could be for him, and subsequently for my children. I didn't have the confidence to be my best self without his stability and in his belief in me as a person, and I've surely helped him through his own struggles as well. All right. So, the reason I chose this one is because we have somewhat of a different opinion, and we wanted to get some different opinions on here, even though we don't have the ability to get other people on here at the moment. So, I don't completely disagree, but I think that you can grow in any situation. I do think that generally you're going to have more growth when you're focused more on yourself.
Well, and like I was telling you earlier, right? That sounds like a bit of codependency to me. I fucking hate codependency. Obviously, as humans, I get it from a biological standpoint.
Yes.
But here's the thing. All my growth has been done completely alone or after a relationship reflecting on the situation. At the end of the day, obviously having a love of your life is great. That can add so much value to your life, but it's still an extrinsic thing.
Yeah.
All your growth is done intrinsically. It can't be taken away from you. So at the end of the day, I get where that person's coming from. Another person can level you up and make you better, but most of your shit's done within yourself.
Well, and here's the thing. The problem I see with growth like this is, what if they break up? That growth could completely go away. Because lots of times, if you... And, apparently she had said she's been with her husband for 20 years now. So, I mean, obviously you've grown a lot, but also you've done all of that growth with him. I mean, who's to say that if he wasn't in your life, you couldn't have done the same thing?
Yeah, or more.
Right? So I think there's a little bit of a confirmation bias going on there because that's kind of the only thing she's ever known, right? Like,
so when did they get together? What age?
Well, she didn't say the age,
so.
But she said that they married early, so presumably pretty young. And she didn't give an age for herself. So, but presumably 20 years if they married early. I'm going to say they probably married early 20s or something like that. So, pretty much her whole adult life, she's been in this relationship.
We all go through, like relationships when we're younger, right?
Of course.
I went through a few in middle school and high school. You went through some as well, and everyone goes through it. But at the end of the day, I generally don't think that you are the person that you need to be for someone else until you're a bit older, right? It requires a lot of self-growth. At 18, I'm not the right person to necessarily be with someone.
Yes.
Right? I need to grow. I need to mature a little bit. And that's why a lot of the relationships don't last when you get into them at like 16, 17, or 18. Because you both aren't mature enough and developed enough to actually be in the relationship.
100%.
What I mean?
I completely agree. And, we've talked about this before, but I do think that everybody needs at least one big relationship failure to really know what they want out of a relationship in life. Because, not to say, I mean, okay, you could get super lucky and you could luck into, the perfect relationship on the first try.
Yeah.
But that's a 1 in a million thing. That's very unlikely. Most of the time, you are going to have at least one big relationship that ends in failure to really be like, okay, what happened that I did wrong? What could I have done differently? What were the signs that I missed? And what do I want going forward, right? I've had that. You've had that. Almost everybody has. And it's important for growth. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't grow from those experiences. They just repeat the same mistakes.
Failure, as I've gotten older, and people look at me crazy when I say this.
That's because you are.
Failure, in a lot of ways, is such a great fucking thing.
Great thing.
Because you learn so much than you usually do from winning, right? Yeah. I've, recently taken up chess. I'm fucking awful.
No, I was going to say you're terrible.
I'm fucking awful. I went to play with David, and he kicked my ass. We've got to draw once, right?
That's great.
But I literally learned so much from that I have improved, and I enjoyed it. I was talking to my mom about it, and she, tried to play chess a little bit when she was like 18.
Sure.
She was like, I lost one game, and I never wanted to do it again.
Unfortunately.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, no, I failed so much, but I've learned so much. I tell people with fights as well, sometimes people will lose their first fight or first competition, and I look at them and I just say, good, that's great.
Yeah.
I wish I would have lost earlier on in my career, because you learn so much from losing.
Yeah, no.
Assuming you reflect well.
And I was going to say, lots of times I think a big problem, well, not I think, I mean, this is kind of a fact really, but people have a very difficult time accepting failure. So and if you can't accept the failure, you can't grow from it, right? Because most of the time, what is most people's reaction when they get out of a relationship? They're like, oh, it's the other person's fault. Oh, they weren't giving me what I needed. They, weren't doing this. They weren't doing that. It's usually it's on the other person. Yeah. But if you can step back and, look at it objectively and say, okay, she made mistakes or he made mistakes, but I also made mistakes, right? You can really start to accept that as a failure and just be like, all right, we both fucked up in different parts or, different points in the relationship. And then you can actually realize, hey, let me not do this again. Let me fix this from going forward. Because, I mean, that's, the crazy relationship I had, the main one, I grew so much from that relationship. I learned so much about what I did and didn't want. Because going into that, I really had no idea what I wanted out of a relationship. Not really. I mean, I had an idea at the time, but it wasn't a realistic one, and it certainly wasn't a well thought out plan or idea. It was just sort of like, hey, this seems fun. This seems like a good idea. Let's just do that. Yeah. But
you were very young.
Yes, I was pretty young, and I don't fault myself for it, but I do consider it a great learning experience, and that's why it's funny when I tell people kind of some of the things that happened and the thievery and whatnot. A lot of people are like, oh, that's terrible. And, and, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Or like, oh my God. And I'm just like, I get it because, it's a large sum, but like at the same time, that still just the whole thing, I still consider it overall a net positive.
It actually reminds me of I'm proud of you. And it reminds me of a, story. And it pertains to this topic. There was a old Roman motherfucker. Like, this is obviously back in the day, right? And this guy was left a large inheritance.
Sure.
But his guardian stole it. And this guy had like a speech impediment, right? He wasn't able to talk and things like that. The stutter, right? And he was left with nothing, right? Nothing at all. But what he did was he essentially like put rocks in his mouth and would like yell out into the sky, and he practiced and practiced and practiced to have a large booming voice. And then he studied law, right?
Well, there you go.
And what he did was he eventually took the guardians to court, because Rome was actually a civilization, thank God.
Yes.
Unlike, the medieval times.
Yeah.
But he took the guardian to court, and he won the small inheritance that was left. But that didn't matter, because he became one of the best lawyers in Rome.
Well, there you
go. The skills he got from that bad situation far outweighed his inheritance.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and that's honestly, it is a perfect example, because there's so many things that can seem terrible at the time or while you're going through it, but if you look back on them, assuming that you actually took the time to, get some introspection and grow and reflect on things and look at your mistakes, you can look back on those things later and be like, okay, this might have sucked at the time, but I'm so happy it happened because I wouldn't be the person I am today without that.
I think an issue is, and I know you agree with this, is it's a cultural issue. Because you grow up in school, every failure you make is punished.
Yes.
You grow up with your parents, every failure you make usually is punished.
Yes.
So as a society, we are taught to fear failure and try to avoid it at all costs, when in reality, failure is the way usually you succeed at
Failure's
things.
an amazing teacher. Yeah. It's one of the best teachers.
You know how many times we've failed at this podcast? We're still failing.
We're still failing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Also, it's funny, on that note, I have noticed a lot of people think that we're being like serious when we talk about failure, and I mean we technically are, but like, just so everyone's clear, we do a lot of self-deprecation. We say that we're like failures, that we're losers, all that. But just so everyone knows, we don't actually believe that. Like, yes, this is not where we want to be at the moment.
Yeah.
But we do have full confidence we'll get there one day. Just because I've noticed some people like actually think we're being serious, that we're just doing this just to continuously shit on ourselves, which is hilarious. But
we're just working on building self-evidence.
We're just working on building it up. Yeah, it's really not something that we're ever going to give up on. That's because that's one of the biggest things, besides obviously people just making poor decisions and not knowing what's going on. One of the biggest reasons people fail is just because they choose to. They just stop. They stop trying. And obviously failure in certain things can be good. It's a good life lesson. But there's also certain things where you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't accept failure. You should keep trying, because it could be worthwhile if you just are persistent with it. And a lot of people, unfortunately, it's kind of like you said with your mom. They'll do it once, they'll have one failure, and then they'll be like, this isn't for me. Yeah. And it's like, I get that, I do, but that's not really how life works.
Now, usually, I mean, every process is a huge learning curve. A failure, it's a failure process. Yes. When I first started MMA, my first 4 tournaments, I got fucking killed.
Yeah.
I just kept showing up and showing up and showing up, and that's how you get better at everything. There's very few people who are born just
first episode.
Oh, it's fucking ridiculous.
It's terrible.
We had a wire here. The mics were different colors.
Sounded like we were in a friggin' tunnel.
It was nuts, dude.
Insane.
Everybody was cooking us. But what we did was we took the criticism and we improved. And this whole process has been...
We're still trying to do that.
Yeah, this whole process has been great. But at the end of the day, with anything, unless you're just extremely naturally talented, there's a process of failure. And I think it's a great thing. And obviously, there's lots of things I don't want to fail at. But at the end of the day, you're going to have many failures along the way.
And, that's... As long as you prepare for that eventuality, because it will happen at some point or another, you will have at least one, probably multiple big failures in your life. As long as you understand that stuff can happen and you accept that, it becomes much easier to deal with.
And also, usually failure is rarely fatal.
Oh yeah,
especially nowadays, right? Yes. We're not like losing the battle and getting executed.
Exactly.
Right? Usually, maybe your business fails, maybe you go bankrupt. Those are all awful things.
Of course.
But you can recover from most things nowadays.
Yeah, unless you're dead.
Yeah.
There's a very, very unlikely chance that you will be just done.
And at the end of the day, you can even come back from that, right? I mean, look at Jesus, but also look at necromancy. Look at you got the Dragon Balls. Arthas, the Emperor, he's still hanging on. Like, there's a lot of things you can do to, circumvent some of this stuff.
It's true, and there's definitely, there's a good case to be made that there's really no such thing as failure, as absolute failure at the end of the day. Because if you don't stop trying at something, technically speaking, you cannot fail.
Yeah.
Like actually, even if you never get exactly where you want to be, the only way that you can fail at a job or at building a business or at a podcast is if you just stop. Like, I mean, yes, you can hit a lot of roadblocks. We definitely have. But, the only way that we can really fail at this is if we stop.
Absolutely.
You know, now obviously everybody has different metrics of success. You know, some people would consider, you know, 1 million followers a success. Some people would consider 1,000 followers a success. Yeah. Some people would consider 100,000. Right? It's, you know, it's everywhere in
very
between.
Subjective.
But you know, if you give up, you are guaranteed never to make it. That's 100% guaranteed.
Failure is always the most readily available option.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's which unfortunately a lot of people take that.
They do, and you know, it's for a lot of reasons. Obviously,
it is
cultural stuff and just, you know, motivation reasons. But it's sad because at the end of the day, the people who usually accomplish something, they've done it a million times. Well, is Edison's a light bulb motherfucker? It's like Tesla. And Edison.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, they tried like 7 billion
like
different
ways to make a light bulb.
Do you know how long that took?
Yeah.
They failed like 99% of the time.
It was something like I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, you know, like somebody asked him like, you know, how did you feel like failing like 2,000 times?
Yeah.
And he said. And he's like, I didn't fail 2,000 times. I found 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
He just found like 2,000 ways to steal everything.
Exactly. Well, that as well. But you know, it's. I mean, I know people like really hate to hear this, and I know it just sounds like, you know, recycled guru garbage. But so much of success is just your mindset. Like I know people hate to hear that, and I know that's like, yeah, you know, everyone says that, yada yada. But that's like so many people I see in real life, the problem that they have is that they simply don't believe that they can achieve anything. Just believing that you can achieve something is such a big thing alone, because most of the time people don't even believe it, so they won't even take the chance.
Well, so at first, before you have evidence that you can do something,
you have to believe.
You have to have self-belief.
Yeah.
You know, belief generally is faith without evidence. You have to entertain some kind of delusion.
Of course.
Obviously, once you fucking have success and you have proof,
you have actual proof.
But until then, you have to entertain delusion.
Exactly. That's why, you know, right now we have no proof that this is going to be successful. We have zero proof at all. But we believe that it's going to be successful. You know, and obviously, you know, there's a lot of people who think that we're like psychotic and that, you know, we're idiots or that this isn't going to work, and you know that we are in some ways. But you know, that belief has still helped us tremendously with growing this, even if it's not where we want it to be, just improving things and you know, adding on to it and trying to make things better.
And at the end of the day, the good thing about us is we really don't give a fuck about those people.
No, yeah.
Like, even if it's someone that we care about, that specific thing that they say, if they don't believe in us, if they think we're going to fail, we don't really specifically care at all. So.
Exactly. Well, and you know, the opinions of the other people, it's like, you know, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But you shouldn't let that affect your decision making in your life. Whatever you're doing, if you feel that it's the right thing, if you feel confident in it, keep doing it.
Absolutely. You got to find your own way. You know, the people's opinions and what they do and what they think and what they say, it's out of your control.
Yeah.
What you control is the process and what you're trying to do in your life. You're always going to have people making fun of you. You're always going to have bitter people that project their own bullshit onto you. So.
Unfortunately.
And it is now time for me to read the other thing.
Let's go ahead and get into another story.
Right. Am I the asshole for evicting my brother's pregnant fiance? I need an outside perspective on this, and if I'm being fair to a misled SIL. Whatever the fuck that is.
I think it's sister-in-law.
Okay.
Is what I would assume.
My 2 younger brothers live in LA. Housing is expensive, but each of us got an inheritance to start us off.
Ooh.
My brothers spent a chunk of it in college, and Jay, 23, recently started working, but LA would still be expensive. Youngest brother, K, 19, is still in college. We are close. I got the lion's share and offered to cover rent on a 2-bedroom for the boys for nearly 2 years
It's the
now.
high partition.
It's literally. Last year, Jay brought a lady home, and Kay thought she'd be a visiting girlfriend like the past ones. She never left. The plot thickens.
Could you imagine?
They've been dating for about 3 months, and she landed in some housing problems, so he helped. Kay was fine with this. He told me, and so I didn't question it. I met her over video. 4 months ago, they came home for a weekend and announced their engagement. She was quiet. They said shy, introverted. What? One word answers and insisting on leaving quickly. When they returned to the apartment, Lady L told Kay he should consider college hostels because they have wedding planning coming up, and after that a marriage cannot start with guests in the house. We believe Jay told her he owns the place and is helping out his little brother. She made life difficult for Kay. Passive-aggressiveness, that's how it's spelled, but it's aggressiveness.
Sure.
Outright asking when he's leaving, engaging in adult acts in the living room to make him uncomfortable. She has walked unclothed, too. This is a very hard thing to read.
Yeah. No, some people on Reddit have bad English skills.
Kay took too long in telling me. The kid never complains or asks for much, so when he did, I went to them. I spoke to both boys, and Jay asked me not to interfere. That he's handling it, I let him. It took only 2 days of my visiting before she brought it up herself that Kay should leave now. He'd been helped for over a year. We had an argument. I informed her I'd be serving her fiancé an eviction order if she didn't leave, and her too if she claimed tenancy. I own everything down to the toilet paper. She yelled hillbilly insults.
Oh my God.
Jay had to go calm her down and tell her it's true. She said she was pregnant and I'm making my baby nephew homeless. I told Jay to have her leave with her or taint his record with an eviction. He also confirms the baby and said she refuses to be a homeless baby mother. If I push through, there's blood on my hands. I read through what he meant. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, this guy is purely protecting his property and his interests.
Well, yeah, and
really.
Also, I mean...
This girl sounds like a nutcase.
She just sounds insane, unfortunately. And, you know, and this is something that we've talked about before, but the family situations are always just terrible. Like, the drama within families is just usually insane.
And they always use the blood tie to try to guilt you and make you feel bad. She's like, oh, you're going to have your nephew's baby's blood on your hand.
Well,
at the end of the day,
is she going to kill the nephew?
Well,
like, is she going to kill her kid? Like, what's going on?
It's not this guy's responsibility to take care of that baby.
No.
His brother decided to nut in the girl, get her pregnant. The sperm survived to fucking fertilization. At the end of the day, it is their issue. Yep. That guy got his inheritance. He spent it on what he wanted to spend it on, but it's up to him and his wife to take care of that child. It's not up to this guy. No, they will mooch off him forever if they let him.
And I was going to say, I mean, here's the thing, right? I firmly believe that so many people, if they just would realize that the blood ties are not that important and that they just need to look at things for what they are instead of, you know, like, oh, he's family or she's family. If they just looked at it objectively. Like, because the way I think of it is like, okay, imagine this is a random stranger. How would you feel? Most people would be like, oh, fuck no.
Wouldn't give a shit.
They wouldn't give a shit. And I'm like, okay, then you should feel the exact same way. Just because they're family means nothing. I mean, and the problem with family is that most of the time, it's the easiest to get blindsided by them and to get manipulated by them because for whatever reason, a lot of people just think they can trust their family and they think that their family always has their best interests in mind. And sometimes, sure, that's true, but that's not always true. And if somebody's treating you poorly or taking advantage of you, then that is a good enough reason to go ahead and just be like, all right, listen, you know, either get your shit together or you're not family anymore. I don't want to see you.
Yep, they're family up until the point that they're toxic and they start treating me like shit. Because at the end of the day, no one has time for that bullshit. You can't let someone mooch off you the rest of your life. A lot of people, their family uses them as fucking banks, as emotional baggage, support, slaves, all kinds of crazy shit. And it's all under the fucking pretense of
family.
I'm your puppy. I'm your fucking cousin. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously people can say what they want about him, but, you know, Logan Paul.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously he had an uncle that called him, and he was like, you know, and he's seen this uncle maybe like 3 times, right? Yeah. And he's like, oh, we're family. You need to buy me a brand new F-150, $150,000 truck.
Us.
And he's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't know you.
Yeah.
Why would I buy you a truck? And he's like, oh, that's fucked up. If I had that money, I'd be helping the family and all this bullshit.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy how many people will, like, when they get famous, like random family members that they've met like once in their life will be like, hey, remember that time when you were 6 that I bought you a popsicle? I want you to buy me a house now.
Dude,
and it's just like,
I mean,
what is going
on? It happens
on?
to so many family members, you know, their cousins and their uncles and their cousins they didn't even have.
It's crazy.
You know, people on the cadet branch of the dynasty come out the fucking woodworks and ask them for favors. It's nuts.
Exactly. It's crazy. And you have no obligation to these people, right? Like, I don't care what anyone says. You only, first off, family, in my opinion, is the people that you choose to call family. Like, I don't actually care if I have blood relation to someone or not. Not to say that I don't care about the family members I do care about, but like, just because I'm like, I have cousins I've not seen in like 15 years. I don't actually care about them. It's not that I hate them or dislike them. I haven't seen them in like 15 years. So why would I care about them?
Yeah.
Like the blood tie situation makes no sense. This is not medieval times. All right.
Keep talking. Hold on 1 second.
No, you're good. Yeah, we do have some younger cats that are a little bit loud. This might be edited out. I don't know, but just in case it's not edited out, I'm going to keep talking.
See if I can put them somewhere else.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
How the cats are.
I know.
Oh, meow.
Yeah, they do like to talk sometimes. But yeah, the blood ties are crazy. Like, people put way too much stock in them.
Well, they're acting like it's the 1300s.
No, they think it's literally like some Plantagenet situation going
nuts.
on. It's not. It's not that serious.
not.
You're not inheriting the throne.
You're not inheriting shit.
Exactly.
You're inheriting an old fucking wardrobe of clothes.
It's not like
and
you're
junk.
like fourth or fifth in line for succession. There is no succession.
Should I wish?
It'd be fantastic, but like, there is no succession.
Just inherit like a large estate. That'd be great.
It'd be fantastic. Also, how are we doing on time?
Not good.
I assume we're pretty much
We have
toward
10 minutes left.
10 minutes. Okay, we can do one more.
Let's do it.
So let's see here. Ooh, Regions Bank, Apple, $8. I like that. I don't know what that's for.
You said Regions Bank?
Yeah, you know, it gives me an update when like one of the subscriptions like charges me.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, so something for $8. I don't know. It's probably
It's
like
a green bank.
Exactly. It is. It's probably Elder Scrolls or something. Like,
are you still paying for ESO?
I honestly don't know. I might be.
Probably should just cancel that, to be honest.
Well, no, I should definitely cancel it. I thought I did, but I actually have no idea.
I was paying for WoW for a while still.
I know. Yeah, sometimes it's easy to forget about these things.
Is.
Like, if you're not really thinking about it. But okay, here's a good one. So, am I the asshole for grounding my daughter and canceling her senior trip after I found out that she was cheating on her boyfriend? So, I have two daughters, Lizzie, 17-year-old female, and Mackenzie, 14-year-old female. Their dad and I divorced a few years ago after I discovered he was having an affair. I have the kids most of the time, and their dad has them every weekend and during summers. Lizzie has been dating Jacob, 18-year-old male, for a year now. Jacob is constantly at her house. He's sweet, and he's a good young man, and I believe he'll be valedictorian. Well, that doesn't matter.
What the fuck does that matter?
However, a few weeks ago, I overheard Lizzie on the phone with a guy clearly flirting. At first, I thought it was Jacob, but then I heard her say Brandon.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Said, oh my God.
Not Brandon.
I realized she was talking to someone else. Then a week later, she mentioned to me that she was heading out to hang out with a friend. And when I looked out the window, I saw her get in a car and greet the guy with a kiss. And it wasn't Jacob. There you go. So even after that, Jacob continued to come over, hanging out with Lizzie. And he and Lizzie still acted like a couple, holding hands, laughing, spending time together, just like they always had. I felt disgusted knowing my daughter was being a two-timer. Such an odd thing to say. After Jacob left that day, I confronted her. I asked her point blank, "Are you cheating on your boyfriend with another guy?" And she said it was none of my business and that her personal life was hers only. I told her that she was wrong and that I raised her better than to treat people like this. And she told me she was bored with Jacob and that Brandon was more her type now. There you go. I told her that if she wasn't happy, she should just break up with him. Yes. She said she didn't know if she wanted to be with Brandon or if she was just having fun flirting and teasing. I told her that cheating is unacceptable and wrong, and as a consequence, I grounded her. I also told her that she wasn't allowed to go on her senior trip with her friends. She obviously did not take that well, and she's been staying at her dad's place the last couple of days. My ex-husband also called me saying I was being unreasonable not letting her go on the trip and her and Jacob was just a high school thing. And he then told me I needed to put my bitterness aside and stop punishing his daughter. I told him I was teaching our daughter right from wrong and that his actions have consequences. So, this is an interesting
good one
because I think there's a few things going on here.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and get out of the way. Obviously, cheating's wrong.
It is.
That part completely agree with. And I actually completely agree with what you said. If you want to be with someone else, just break up with the person you're with and go be with someone else. It's as simple as that.
But
on the flip side,
personal
the fact
life,
that she's been cheated on by her husband is definitely coloring her judgment on this. And I get it, right? You know, when you've had that kind of betrayal, it can. I mean, I've never had it happen to me, but you know, I can imagine that would be a very hard thing to recover from, and that is something that is understandable. But there is, I think maybe grounding her is okay. I think the senior trip thing might be a little too far because that's a little bit like, I think that's a little much. Granted, she's probably the one paying for the senior trip, so you know at that point it's like, all right, it's your money, your decision. But I think there definitely should be consequences. I think there should be, you know, sort of like a understanding of right from wrong. But the thing is that unfortunately, I mean, this girl, I think she says she's 17.
She's almost an adult.
She's already an adult, basically. Unfortunately, she's probably going to be a slut no matter what at this point. Like, you have a certain time period of, like, when you can teach your kids right from wrong, and then after that, they're kind of just, it's set.
And that's how I feel, right? I think that, you know, cheating is wrong. I think, you know, maybe the right course of action could be, you know, telling the boyfriend if you like him.
I was going to say,
but at the end of the day, if I have a 16 or 17-year-old daughter or something, they're pretty much an adult, and I'm not going to get involved and ground them in that matter or cancel their trip just because they have to make their own mistakes.
Yeah.
They have to deal with the consequences. Obviously, like I said, you know, maybe tell the guy, but at the end of the day, I think she's projecting a lot of her own hurt onto the situation.
I think that there's definitely, you know, it's an interesting one because really, you know, on one side she's right and on one side you definitely can see there's some bias going on there for sure. And
cheating's bad.
It is, and you know, we've said this many times, right? You know, the cheating situation is always just insane because it's also, I mean, she even said it too, like, you know, she's like, she wasn't sure if she wanted to be with Brandon or Jacob. She literally just wants to have her cake and eat it too.
She does.
That's most people, right? And with these sorts of situations, I mean, first off, I think that, like I said just a minute ago, the time to teach your kids these lessons is usually when they're like 12, 13, 14, 15. Like, if it's like me and you, we knew we didn't want to do drugs or drink even when we were, you know, like in middle school, you know, like that wasn't something that we, you know, tried and experimented with and then we're like, oh no, we don't like this. Like, we knew that, partially because of our own experiences, partially because we're just not morons, but also because that's just something that we had decided for ourselves. It's just not the right decision. It's
Absolutely.
not, there's no benefit.
Yeah, once they're 16 or 17, like I said, they're essentially an adult and they're going to make their own choices.
Exactly. They're going to be doing what they want.
I do wonder, the husband cheated, right?
She said the husband cheated.
I do wonder if the daughter is like acting that out.
Yeah, there's definitely
seeing what happened and maybe subconsciously or consciously following that path.
There might be some weird stuff going on. Also, it does kind of sound like the dad is. I mean, because unfortunately, also the problem is that the dad is also probably, you know, on the daughter's side. You know, it's just like because he basically is just justifying the cheating, which that I don't agree with. I think that, you know, the whole, you know, the mom projecting some of her problems onto the daughter is definitely the case, but there's definitely no excuse for cheating. Like, so I think you've got a problem of one parent thinks it's totally fine because obviously he cheated himself, and then the other parent is overly sensitive to it. So you've got a very unfortunate situation because unless the daughter is intelligent, which realistically most people aren't, it's going to be very difficult for her to navigate that.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's because
she probably won't learn from it either.
I was going to say,
especially when she goes to college, it's going to be a cesspool of sin and degeneracy, and it's probably just going to get worse.
It's probably going to get worse, unfortunately. And that's kind of what I was saying is that, you know, once they hit, you know, 16, 17, 18, there's really not much you can do, and if they're already set in the degeneracy and the idiot mindset,
and the grounding and the taking away the senior trip won't be effective.
What I was gonna say, consequences are important, but at the same time, you have to understand that with something like this, at this age, it's not going to do anything.
And at the end of the day,
all it's going to do is build up resentment.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it'll probably make her just want to go spite her mother and do it more. Because some people do these things just to spite their parents.
It's true. It's very true. And I completely agree. And that's, unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that once kids hit a certain age that really, like, consequences don't take any effect.
My mom used to try to ground me at like 15, 16. Yeah. I was like, I love my mom. But I was like, go fuck yourself. No, you can't. It doesn't work at this age.
It doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't work unless, like, I mean, now obviously it's like, especially for like certain things that, like, it's like, okay, yeah, you fucking you go and like kill someone. It's like, all right, yeah, you should probably
go to prison.
As in go to prison. But but it's something as like the cheating, especially. I mean, here's the thing. At that age, realistically, I mean, the relationship is not going to last no matter what. Not that that's an excuse.
No, but she just wants to have fun and be a slut.
If I was the mom, what I would do is I'd tell the boyfriend. I'd just be like, hey,
that's exactly what I would do.
She's cheating. You should probably go ahead.
Because that's a personal thing, right?
Exactly. So. Like you should just call it quits, right? And then obviously, sure, you can have a conversation with the daughter and be like, hey, you realize this is wrong, right? But like beyond having a conversation with them, there's really not much else to do. Also, I generally find that having conversations are going to be more effective than just consequence. Like being like, you're in trouble. Like if you talk to them and be like, hey, do you understand why this is wrong? Like, do you...
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. We'll wrap up here in just a sec. Like, they'll be like, hey, do you understand why this is wrong? It's going to be much easier for them to say, to realize, like, okay, yeah, I fucked up. Yeah. Because, I mean, that's, for me, like, if somebody were to just come to me and, like, I don't know, like, let's say... at work, I just messed something up, and they just were immediately like,
they reprimand you.
They just were like, I don't even know what would happen besides getting fired, but let's just say there's a middle ground, like a write-up, I guess is basically what it is, or they just immediately give me a write-up. That would piss me off a lot more than if they were to just come talk to me and be like, hey, you messed something up here, like, do you understand, like, how you messed it up, and, like, can we try to not do it again?
Well, all doing that does, like, all reprimanding without, actually communicating what the issue is, it just builds resentment, right? Yeah. So if you have a kid, you don't instantly just start beating the shit out of them or taking away their toys. You have a conversation with them, right? You need to be like, hey, you ordered this on accident, you fucked this up, you were mean or whatever. Talk to them, maybe put them in a timeout, but you don't just instantly start taking away all their stuff. It's an issue.
It's actually
so that's how a lot of parents operate.
A lot of parents are just not good at parenting, unfortunately. And I get it, because unfortunately that's kind of the norm, right? Like, most of the time, parents are essentially taught that, it's like, oh, you got to discipline your kids and, all that. And it's like, sure, but my mom never hit me once and I still learned right from wrong. That was not it's the concept that you have to like hit your kid or like take all their shit from
that's
them.
just going to cause them to be an abuser when they grow up.
Lots of times it's just going to make it worse.
The discipline is more than just negative. You can discipline someone positively, negatively. Disciplining could be as simple as just talking to them about the situation. It's called discipline. It's not called beating the fuck out of your kids.
Exactly.
I actually used to I used to be on a basketball team in 4th grade.
Yes.
And there was this kid. Sure. His dad was a fucking dickhead. He was a literal dickhead.
Yeah.
Anytime that kid wouldn't play well, he would take away the kid's Xbox, and we were like 12.
It's crazy.
So you know how important the Xbox is.
Yeah, definitely.
All that did was build resentment against the father. It made the kid hate the game. It fucked up the kid's dopamine. It made him terrified.
Yeah.
There was no positive in that situation.
No, yeah. Unfortunately, and that's most people when it comes to parenting, is that they don't realize that just taking things away or that hitting their kids or whatever, they don't discipline them or teach them right from wrong. They just punish them. You know, it's just punishment. It's just like, okay, well, you messed up, so you're grounded for a week or a month, and whatever. And that's not going to do anything. It's really not going to do anything. But on the flip side, you do have to be careful not to let your kids get away with everything, because